Hi, I'm Scott, and I'm an LA Fish Guy. Welcome back to the new, shorter, multi-part version of LA Fish Guys.
Alright, we're at the point now where we can begin to glue in the various PVC fittings. A lot of people have a lot of different ways of how they apply the PVC cement. Some of them use the primer and then put on a special sealant. Some of them just use the cement as I do. There's also a big opinion as to, is it a twisty or do you push it straight in? I think a lot of it has to do with just getting a whole bunch of glue inside there or cement inside there so that you don't end up causing yourself a problem.
Teflon tape. I don't normally like this stuff. I prefer Teflon paste, but we're using what we got and I forgot my Teflon paste. But on the other hand, Teflon tape is an awful lot cleaner because Teflon paste always seems to get everywhere when you handle it. Alright, so we've got the mixing station mostly plumbed. Got a return pump, or our mixing pump here, and our valve set up. All this is glued together. The next step is to figure out where we're going to put his fittings that'll allow him to pump water directly to his truck and directly to his quarantine system. So we'll have this little four-way thing that'll go in line here. We'll have a valve on either side. Obviously this will be used to pump water into his van. The other side will be used to pump water to his quarantine system. We'll go over to the quarantine system now and take a quick measurement so we can determine what height we want that at. Take a quick measurement because we're going to run it from here over there to his sump, and we're going to set it up at 31 inches.
We've come to the final fitting of PVC up here for the water circulation system. We've incorporated a little flex tubing in here. This being California, you never know if an earthquake's going to happen. It also helps compensate for a bit of an angle coming out of the container. And so a little more cement. Again, don't be stingy with it. Easier now to clean up a little excess than it would be to have to go in and try to fix a fitting that's got a leak in it. Push that in there. We'll hold it for a moment while it sets up. And as you can see, I've got a valve here that we can put a garden hose fitting in, and that I can run and pump water straight out to the van. This one here we can pump into the fish system for water changes, whether it be reverse osmosis as top off or salt water for a water change. And then the balance comes up into the container here, which again allows me to move RO water over or bring salt water up and circulate it inside here. And so I think that just about finishes the plumbing system. Let's start working maybe on the RO system now.
This is a Spectrapure Max Cap dual membrane 5-stage RODI unit with automatic flush. This unit is capable of putting out 1 gallon of RODI and 2 gallons of waste. So it's pretty efficient compared to most RODI units that for every gallon of RODI you have 3 to 4 gallons of waste. This unit has an automatic flush, so every 30 or so gallons it'll flush itself with fresh water and clean out the membrane so that, as material or debris and stuff and nasty stuff in the water builds up in the membranes, it'll flush them out. It helps preserve the membranes and helps them last longer. We had looked at using a 1-to-1 ultra high efficiency unit, but the practical one, which really is impractical anyways, is a 90 gallon per day unit. The next step up, which is 180 gallons or so a day, or 150, is a lot more money and really kind of impractical considering Jim's going to be doing very large runs of water. that tend to be kind of hard on cartridges. So we chose a unit that had automatic flush that'll flush out the membranes to help preserve them. This is a very efficient unit, and it'll handle up to 180 gallons a day of RODI. Now, installation on the unit is pretty straightforward. We've already got it mounted here. The RODI unit comes with all the stuff you need. It includes the hoses you need. It includes the TDS meters. This one over here will tell us what the TDS is of the tap water. That's total dissolved solids. It'll tell us what the TDS coming out of the RO stage is, which is kind of important because it tells us when we're exhausting filters. And on the DI side, the most important side, we've got a TDS meter for the first stage of DI and the second stage. Now, outside of the second stage, we expect to see 0 TDS. Initially, and for a while, we'll see 0 TDS coming out of the first stage of the DI as well, but this will tell us when it's time to change this first cartridge. As long as you stay on top of the first cartridge, the second cartridge lasts a lot longer. He should be able to get several hundred gallons of water through one of these cartridges, and as long as he stays on top of this meter here, he'll maintain his cartridge life, and more importantly, we'll only be replacing one cartridge most often. As I said, it comes with all the hoses you need. We've got our tap water line, and in this case we've got a flush line. It also comes with a line that you hook up to your RODI tank, but since Jim's tank is remote, we've already taken the time to route the other line. There's also a power plug for this so we can power it on. It has a couple valves in there, solenoid valves, and a little computer brain in it that tells it when it's time to do the flushing. So quickly right now we're going to go ahead and hook up the lines to it. There's 3 lines that we need to be concerned with, and then we'll get into the final stage of setup, which is flushing the system out. So first thing to do is to hook this thing up to his tap water spigot over here. Screw that right in there. Now notice he's got a valve on this, which makes it really convenient. Spectrapure supplies a little valve that we can hook up in line, but at this point we really won't need it. I will probably put this on the outlet line, but really it's not needed. So the next step is to route our 2 lines. I'm going to feed those through over here. So we've got our waste and our tap. Now these use a nice little push lock type of fitting. And we got our waste line, which will hopefully squeeze into there somehow. Good. And now we plug them in. We've got our waste line here. That plugs in right there. And you'll notice things are color coded. You got the yellow line there, you got this here. The black one goes in right here at the first stage. I got that hooked up. And then our last line is the line that goes to our RO unit. And we'll take this little valve. We're going to use this valve, not that it really matters. We've got a little piece of tubing here. Alright, the last little one, just pull this down here so you can see. That is located on the back here, and this is where our freshwater, or our RODI outline goes. So we're going to plug this little valve in here. This will function as a quick shut off so we can shut the water off to the tank. Not that we'll ever need it, but when you shut that off, the RODI shuts off. So we'll plug it in here. You can see how these little TDS meters plug in here. As I said, everything is really straightforward. It comes with a line for the DI, but we're using our own line. We'll hang this thing back up onto the hanger. And voila. So now that's all set up. The last thing to do is to plug it in. Grab a step stool.
Do you have an aquarium question? Are you looking for aquatic answers? Just key in wetwebmedia.com. Wet Media has information on freshwater, marine, brackish, and planted aquariums. Wet Media is staffed by the capable Wet Media crew. Check today's facts, ask questions, or search keywords. That's wetwebmedia.com.
Hi there, my name's Jim Stime and you know me as the LA Fish Guy. Well, I also wear a couple of other hats. One of them is the jellyfish tank called the Jelly Aquarium, and the third is myfishtank.com. I offer an entire line of acrylic aquariums ranging from rectangular to hexagon, flatback hex, as well as the custom curve front aquariums. There's also an entire line of stands and canopies ranging from MDF to pine to oak with a variety of different finishes available. And the website is even smart enough that you can calculate what the freight and crate charges to your location will be. That's myfishtank.com.
Reef Hobbyist magazine believes that our hobby, our fellow hobbyists, and the animals in our care are best served by the free distribution of quality information. Reef Hobbyist magazine provides hobbyists with critical husbandry information with an emphasis on marine ornamental breeding efforts. Reef Hobbyist magazine is available for free in local fish stores across the country, or you can subscribe at www.reefhobbyistmagazine.com.
So quite often me and Scott have opposing views on different things, whether it be an approach as to how to do it, or money spent now or money spent later. This kind of really applies with a lot of different things that I'll intentionally bounce ideas off him, usually knowing he's 180 degrees different opinion of me, but I try to use that opposing view to kind of round out my ideas. Well, there's two things in the job so far. One was the use of that flexible tubing over on the plumbing by the containers, and the other one is some kind of protection for the water line for the reverse osmosis as it goes from the water containers that are over here in the corner of the garage over here to where the actual water supply line and laundry machines are. And since there's a fair amount of distance between the 2 points, I've routed the tubing up behind the boxes and storage shelf there into some PVC pipe. It's not glued, it's just regular, actually it's old PVC pipe that I had in the backyard, but it serves as a protective liner for that tubing, not only from me pushing boxes and such up against it, but at the same time it protects it from getting light into it, which could grow algae inside of there. And of course Scott kind of scoffed at me, but I had the tubing and it only takes a few minutes to put it in. And with a few simple clamps, I'm able to secure that PVC pipe up there. It runs behind this poster, pokes out down here, and then you can see where the semi-rigid clear tubing pops out, and that's where it connects to his solenoid valve. So at this point, all that tubing is now protected, not only from me sliding some boxes up alongside of it, but light or algae growing in the tubing as a result of.
Okay, so it's time to clean the system out. We're going to take the cartridges out here. The reason we're doing this is because cartridges have some stuff in them from manufacturing sometimes, and it's a good idea to purge them of anything. So we'll take both of these cartridges out for the moment. Fire the system up and let some water run through it and watch the TDS come down. Now you don't want to crank these things down, usually hand tight is sufficient. And if any air gets trapped in also, we'll want to purge that. So we'll open up our valve now. Fire up our TDS meter. We'll do a little flush cycle right now. We can see Jim's tap water here, and as you notice, when you first turn this thing on, the TDS goes really high and then it starts dropping down. So we're going to kind of purge these things, and from what I'm seeing right out of the gate, looks like Jim's water quality is a little bit better than mine. Mine's usually 475, and I get some pretty good length out of my cartridges. So what I'm seeing here Jim's TDS in the 420, 430 range may not be so bad. So we're going to wait for this to come down, and once this comes down and gets in the 7 or so range, that's when we'll start adding these cartridges here. But what we're doing right now is getting any of the nastiness out of the first couple stages.
What did you do there that changed it from 400 and something down to 19?
We flipped the in and the out, so 400 and something is the water coming in, which is actually going down now. It's really good. You actually apparently have decent water quality here. Out is the TDS of the water coming out of this cartridge. As you see, this is coming down, so once this stabilizes, that's when we'll start adding the other cartridges, and we're going to repeat the process. We'll add one cartridge, the first cartridge, in here. We'll wait for this to drop to 0 on the input side, and once it drops to 0, then we'll add the second cartridge, and then at that point we'll connect it to the DI tank. Right now, the other end of this hose is going out the driveway. So, alright, so our TDS is stabilized pretty well here. We're going to go ahead and shut the water off. That off. Next step is to add in our first DI cartridge and repeat the process. So let that do its little flush. And alright, so put our first cartridge in there. First DI cartridge, that is.
Sure glad you got that container below you there, eh?
Yeah. Alright, turn her back on. Right now. Alright, so we just put our other cartridge back in. And we're looking at the TDS in right now, and it's obviously up high. It's going to take a little bit of time with water running through it to come down. So we'll sit here and wait till that comes down to 0, and once it comes to 0, then we'll add the final stage cartridge. And then we'll repeat the process. We'll fire it back up, and when this comes down to 0, then we can start filling this tank up. So now you're wondering too, when it comes time to changing a cartridge in the future, when this one starts building up on this meter here on the input side, we repeat the same process. We'll either pull this cartridge out or disconnect the tubing here, add a little tubing in there, run it out the backyard so that we can flush this cartridge without impacting the final stage DI cartridge. This helps us preserve the last cartridge, saves money in the long term on cartridge replacement. So Jim, when he's making water every time, he's going to want to hit this little button here and check the input side there to make sure that it's reading 0. Once it starts reading 1, 2, or 3, he's going to know that it's going to be time to prepare to changing a cartridge. So we've pretty much finished up on this side. This cartridge here hit its 0 point, so I added the second cartridge. Now that that's done, we're in the final stage right now. As you can see, this is also 0 TDS. So at this point, we've got 0 on the in, we've got 0 on the out. That means that both of these cartridges are putting clean water out. He's got 60 PSI here, which is decent water pressure for a house. Last thing to do is going to be to hook it up over the RO tank. So we'll go over to the RO tank, we'll plug in the hose, and we'll talk a little bit about how this system is controlled. It's controlled through a series of float valves. We touched on them earlier, but we'll go in and show that next. Go. So for Jim to make water, the process is pretty simple. You'll always have a full container of RODI, so it's simply a matter of opening this valve here, closing that valve there, and now water will be drawn from the RODI unit through the pump into the saltwater mixing tank. Once it's full, open this valve, close that valve, and now the mixing pump is circulating water through the saltwater tank, dumps in his salt, and a few hours later he's got good salt water. So in a nutshell, that's it. As long as Jim pays attention to his saltwater mixing, there'll be no more floods here. Woohoo! So that'll conclude us. If you're interested in Spectrapure filtration systems, they are one of the best. Please visit them at www.spectrapure.com. Not only do they make their filtration systems, but they're one of the few that actually make their filters too. So again, www.spectrapure.com. Thanks for watching, and keep moving forward.